Welcome to the Fashion Translator. I'm Claire, your host. Together we explore how AI and innovation are reshaping the fashion industry through creativity, technology, and global partnership. For today's episode, I'm thrilled to welcome Nathan Trafford, founder and designer of Trafford Watch, a brand known for its heritage-inspired designs, thoughtful craftsmanship, and human approach to modern watchmaking. Nathan, thank you for joining us. Could you start by introducing yourself and share what inspired you to create Trafford Watch?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. My name's Nathan, and I'm the founder here at Trafford Watch Company. We're about 5 years old, doing this for a while now, and we're growing every year, having a great time, and met a lot of really great people along the way. My wife and I laugh whenever I'm asked to be on things like this for a fashion podcast, because I am not a fashionable person at all. I'm just a guy who has a deep appreciation for heirloom type of items, and that appreciation is what led to the initial desire to start Trafford Watch Company. I'm a brand designer by trade and worked in the digital design world for many years. I've also been a watch guy and used to sketch them in meetings. Eventually, those worlds just came together and blossomed into what the brand is today. So yeah, we're happy to be here.
That's nice. Tell us a bit more about the core principle. What is the soul of Trafford Watch?
Sure. We're all about story. We like to say that we're a watch company that's driven by the stories of those who wear one of our watches, who like to keep time with one of our watches, grounded in traditional watch design while modern it through color, typography, materials, and precision engineering.
Tell us more also a bit about the whole process. What does it look like behind the scene, from the sketching all the way to production? We want to know a bit more.
Messy. A lot of guessing and checking. We have our foundational principles for how we do watch design. These are things that I've learned outside of the watch world through my time as a branding designer. But we can, for watch design specifically, and I'll focus more on the watch design aspects. There's a whole production side to the process as well. But the important thing with that is that it takes about 3 to 6 months to make a watch. There's a lot of reliance on hand finishing and the human touch, which I think plays into the traditional nature of mechanical watches. But the design side is where I put most of my personal focus. We've gotten to a point of production that we know that everything that comes out is going to be an exceptional build quality. But from the upfront, from a design standpoint, blank paper sort of thing, there are 2 main parts that we focus on for watch design, and that's function and story. The function side makes your day easier, while the story side makes you feel something, which is really important. From a design perspective, those 2 things often live in 2 different bubbles until they're ready to get married. So on the one side, on the function side, that's all about the purpose of the watch. What is the reason for it to exist? Is it a casual daily wear watch? Is it for travel? Is it for sport or some other specific thing? This purpose will influence every design decision about the watch. So we're talking about the case shape, the size, the curves, how it wears on the wrist. The dial design is a massive part of that as well, and is completely built around that function. It varies a lot from dial to dial, but the core of it, legibility, is always at the front of that. And in that phase of the design, we do everything in black and white so that the function remains pure. Then on the other side, we focus on story. And how does story come through in a watch? It's funny, but there's a few ways that we can tap into story. And a lot of that comes through in color. A lot of that comes through in small details, the design details on the dial, usually in the typography. We like to tie our collections to overarching concepts like musical instruments, guitars, colors of the sky, that type of stuff. It's ultimately just different ways that we can connect with people and have their interests and their memories sparked through color and dial design and stuff like that. It's important for us for those to be open to interpretation by the wearer. We want to spark memories that make up the stories of those that choose to wear our watches. Then those 2 parts come together in a way that's often hard to describe. It's ultimately just an exercise in exploration. Sometimes things that we think will look awesome look horrible, and vice versa. The goal is to make a watch that's comfortable, legible, and makes you feel something. So that's kind of our ethos on design.
I think that's a beautiful perspective, especially if you think about it with the vision that these are heirloom pieces that will be passed from generation to generation. There's an openness to create the story. There's a story that is inherent to the watch, but then there's place for this story to grow and layered with each owner that wears it.
Yep. The other thing I've learned by doing this is the story of the wearer is the story that's important for us. I started this whole thing by making some watches that were heavily based on historical stories that I found, and it was fun. I did it and people enjoyed it, but nobody cared. Nobody cared about me telling them a story. But what I got out of that was the reasons that people gave to me of why they got a watch. They were celebrating a new job or whatever. They had a kid. There's all different kinds of reasons. And you don't even have to have a real reason. But that connection of why you buy something that tells people a little bit about yourself is much more interesting to me than forcing a story on somebody else.
Yeah, it's definitely the continuation. It's like the growth and the evolution of this heirloom. You mentioned 3 to 6 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Is that like to get the first prototype or production ready?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a prototype. Making a watch, one watch, could take 3 to 6 months easily. We do our damn best to make sure that we are all squared away with the prototypes before the prototypes are even made. So all of our technical drawings, all of that, we're locked in because we don't want to have to redo prototypes. That takes forever. So then typically we'll go through either a pre-order process or jump right into it. And that's another 4 or 5 months for a full production run to be made. Very easily, if you're talking about from a sketch to watches being on customers' wrists, it's easily over a year often.
Yeah, a lot of work that goes on. From your perspective, how could cross-disciplinary collaboration, whether it's with designers or technologists or maker, like all these moving parts, how can this expand watchmaking, what this world can become?
I think the watch world can be a little bit stuffy sometimes and get locked into its own little bubble of tradition and stuff like that. And I think we live in a world where there's so many places to take inspiration that it would be silly not to be looking around you different places for not just inspiration, but what can I learn from this person or this industry, how they do things to make what I do better. The watch world is specifically mechanical watches. It's at an interesting point of growth right now. By metrics, these are objects that don't need to exist. We can all tell the time with our phone or whatever, but demand continues to grow. And I think a lot of that has to do with people wanting to show a little bit more personality with what they choose to wear. Wearing an Apple Watch doesn't say anything about yourself. And we believe that's true in many categories outside of watches. I think that anyone we collaborate with that helps to tap into this story of the individual is only going to help the industry to grow. It's also important to, like I said, to be constantly in the loop with what's happening in the other industries, especially when it comes to colors and textures. We're always looking for inspiration outside of the watch world.
It was slow at first. Everybody stayed in their lane. If you were doing bridal, you were doing bridal. If you were doing activewear, you were doing activewear. But with the years, we saw many collaboration. These boxes are starting to break down. If you think about like Stella McCartney for Adidas, so there's been so many after. These collaboration more and more are what brings flavor to the fashion industry. The same way you think about food, like fusion, when you mix Peruvian with Asian, it can be scandalous at first, but then you open up your world for so much more depth and so much more creativity.
For sure. We have a whole line of watches that are based on guitars. Completely different groups, completely different categories. It just makes the whole industry more interesting when you can have a little bit more fun with it. Do something new. There's a lot of possibilities there.
That's for sure. For example, the guitar collection. How many pieces per collection do you usually put together?
I like to keep it usually to about 4. We call them colorways per collection. It's just a nice, easy number to work with where it's not too many options. And from a production standpoint, it's also doable.
So talking about fusion and thinking outside the box, where do you see this balance? Because watchmaking carries a strong sense of heritage. Where do you see this balance between honoring tradition and embracing these changing or these fusion options?
Yeah, that's something we think about a lot. Being a young brand in a category, an industry that is steeped in tradition, people desire to wear a certain logo on your wrist, that type of thing. Watches are unique in that they're intrinsically tied to time. We're not
Yeah.
going to change how time works, but we can learn from the way that things were done in the past and apply modern technology and modern design language to make
Yeah.
watches that are both higher quality than before, but unquestionably our own.
Yeah.
People often use watches to commemorate special moments in life that they want to remember. And so I think it's important for us as designers to design and build with tradition in the back of our minds and that sort of heirloom mentality while still putting our design spin on it to make it our own.
Yeah, I can see this. It's a balancing act.
It is, yeah. And I enjoy the tradition of watchmaking. That's what drew me in to start with is in the mechanical watch world, there's no batteries in there. It's gears and springs and somebody hand putting them together. And that side of it is engrossing. It's just really a beautiful thing. So being able to put our design spin and our design language on that is a unique opportunity for us to do.
As founder, if you look at your journey so far, what were some of the challenges that turned into growth and that really shaped how you approach your business today?
The challenge is I'm not a business person. And so I've learned a hell of a lot over the last 5-6 years doing this. Probably the biggest challenge is what we're talking about is lead time, how long these things take to make. We live in a world where people want things right away, and it's just not possible with stuff like this. When a watch takes a year from sketch to being on wrists, that can make it really difficult to plan long-term forecasts and release schedules when you don't know exactly how well one model is going to do versus another. We've gotten to a point where we're able to pretty accurately forecast on certain releases, but the most important thing is to continue to be nimble as a small business. We're able to do that a little bit more, being nimble and change directions and pivot if we have to, and that we always have multiple things that we're being worked on at one time. But yeah, apart from that, it's all the business stuff. I'm not well versed in the business side of things. So that in itself has been a huge challenge.
So when it comes to running the business, what aspect has most of your focus right now?
My focus always is on the customer constantly. That influences every aspect of the business. The number one focus for the customer experience and making sure that every touch point with our company is just excellent, whether that's online or in person. After that, a lot of my focus is obviously on what is directly up, what's next. But I'm also thinking a lot more long-term these days, thinking about the case design, like for watches that can be used for multiple releases. Thinking in that way, rather than here's the one watch that's next, something that I've done that I really love. How can we maximize the use of it for different releases? I'm always thinking about color strategies and how we can change certain functionalities to make them modern and unique to us. Yeah, there's as a business owner, you're pulled in 1,000
You're wearing many hats.
Many hats. Yeah, like I have to vacuum and stuff in here later today. But in general, 5 years in, we're starting to really take a lot of stuff off my plate, the logistical side of things. We found the value, focusing on my value that I bring from a design perspective, especially, and winning back more hours in the day, focus on that has been a good thing.
I'm sure.
And it's allowed me to interact with customers more and not be so focused on the day-to-day logistics of running a business.
If you could automate one thing in the business, which one would it be?
Yeah, it's operations. And like I said, that's something that we're doing. I never want to lose connection with customers. So I'm never going to remove myself so much from that. I need that interaction with folks in the industry, not just even customers, just in the watch community as a whole. I need to be plugged in there and having those relationships. But a big part of it that we did this past year is getting help with fulfillment so that I'm not spending time packing boxes and shipping them out. I'm still going to go and look at all the watches and check them all and stuff, make sure everything's running well, but I don't need to be packing boxes and shipping them up. That's taking away time from being able to design and put out new work, which people are constantly yelling at me for. Like, when's the next thing coming out?
More of you.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, I wouldn't have to worry about any of the financial or operational side of the business. But I think I'll just naturally always have a hand in those buckets as well. It's the nature of it.
Yeah, for sure. And the consumer and then the community, I can see how that's precious. That's really where you get the pulse and where you can get the feedback and gauge what the direction. And also tying back to when you said being nimble, like that's really an important part of being able to shift and really feel what's received and how is the consumer feeling about the product. That's crucial in a brand. I think you can really feel the difference in the way brands grow, the ones that are customer centered rather than data centered, or that are focusing on their margin rather than what is my consumer feeling, what is my consumer feedback.
I think so, especially when it's something as personal as a watch. If you're selling something boring, one thing, but when you're in the fashion industry and something as personal as a watch, I think that focusing on the customer experience and the customer stories is always going to be a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. We spoke about the past 5 years, but looking ahead, if everything goes exactly the way you envisioned it, what does the next 5 year looks like for Trafford Watch?
Oh, geez. Who knows? The world changes so fast these days with AI and all that and everything that's going on. I don't like to put numbers on any of these things. It'll just stress me out. But I think my personal goal is to simply grow at a rate that isn't going to take away from my personal life while growing enough to give us the opportunity to turn more ideas that are in my head into a reality. There's a lot of specific things that can help make this happen. But again, the number one goal is to constantly maintain and improve the experience for the customer. What that looks like 3 to 5 years is tough to say. I do think we're going to have more focus on the human aspect of watch design. And I think we'll probably see this in not just the fashion industry, but in the arts in general over the next 3 to 5 years. You think about AI and everything that's going on with that, and the lines are blurring between what's made by a person and what's made by a robot in the creative world, especially. I don't think we're going to stop that train.
We can.
I think we just need to draw a line in the sand almost for ourselves as individual companies and people. And I think there's going to actually be a lot more value in things that are human made. And a lot of that value is going to come through in proof, being able to show your work that this was made by a human. You've done the legwork of the design. But I've been seeing that already for years, that when we design something, we show the end product, we show it in a beautiful way. And the comments I hear from people is that they are so interested in the process and seeing how we come to these design decisions. And none of it's done by a robot. It's all me and our team coming together to make these things. I think AI in general can, in a way, make us more human. It opens us up from doing a lot of tasks that we shouldn't really be doing as humans necessarily, and allows us to focus on more creative things. But a big part of that is us as humans having a point of view on the creative work that we do. That's the big differentiator between human creativity and AI creativity, is we have a point of view, and showing that, whether it's on a watch or in some other fashion or in fine art, music, any of it. I think that's going to be an important part of the conversation for the next 3 to 5 years. And I hope to be a part of that conversation with the work we do and showing the value of the process, the creative process. That's what I see happening in the next 3 to 5 years. What that translates to in terms of growth for the company, I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. AI is there. We're not stopping it. It's about choosing where do we stand for that and standing our ground where there's going to be pressure from side and the other. But like you mentioned, if we think of it before AI, there was already this openness for the consumer that we're interested in not just the brand, but who's behind the brand. That was the first iteration. Who stands for this brand and what does this brand stand for? This was the first layer. But then now I feel it's really taking another stage. They want to be taken behind the scenes. Social media, among other things, it's again a double-edged sword. It can be damaging, but at the same time, it can allow your consumer to have a sneak peek and to share a much more personal perspective that people can connect with and come together as a community into an entire different level of human connection that we really need, especially in the age of AI. And we said, like, we cannot predict where this is going, but it's already clear that we're craving more and more connection as this is expanding.
Absolutely. In the long term, I think that humans will find a way. Obviously, we're not going to get taken over by robots. But I think in the creative world, it's going to be more and more important to show your work, so to speak. Show how you do this, where you come up with the ideas. Honestly, I'm excited about it all. If AI and technology can help us to make better products from a manufacturing standpoint and from other sides, I think it's a good thing. Art is innately human. I think that will be the layer on top of production and manufacturing.
Yeah, and all these repetitive, mind-numbing tasks, all of these can be freed and to give us space for more creativity.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. There's going to be some painful moments in the world.
Oh, for sure.
I'm a hopeful guy in general. So I have hope for humanity in that regard.
So do I.
And hope for the watch industry.
Yes, likewise. So Nathan, there's going to be exciting things coming for you, coming for Trafford Watch. We'll be sure to keep an eye and ear on what's coming next. For the listeners who would like to stay in touch, all the links are going to be in the description. Nathan, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.